You're listening to The Alex Jones Show. We are on the march. The empire is on the run. Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
Welcome to the Sunday edition of the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, your host in Austin. Alex is on the road in California, giving a presentation to a large health group out there this weekend. We have a lot of breaking news, and of course, if you haven't seen it on Infowars.com, there is now a video showing troops doing exactly what they're proposing to do, and Jade Helm doing it in Fort Lauderdale. Of course, no one got any advance notification of this. This is something, as we have pointed out, I'm going to play Joe Biggs's video at the end of the hour, talking about how Fox News spun this. They were spinning it to tell people that we were maintaining that we had found some secret classified document. No, it was unclassified. It was on a server. It just wasn't being made public. And so what we did was once it was unscribed, we made that public. We pointed that out to people. Then they pretended that they didn't know what was in this document, that they hadn't seen it, that it wasn't theirs. They basically just tried to ignore it until it went viral. At that point, they can't ignore it. But we're going to show you footage of it. I'll narrate this for those of you who are listening on the radio. We're going to show you footage of what happened in Fort Lauderdale. Of course, the people there didn't know this was coming. That's one of the differences, knowing that this is going to happen, being prepared to take this kind of footage. But of course, with everyone having cell phones, citizen journalists are getting some really, really important information, and this is very important for you to see. If you haven't seen it, and it's on Infowars.com. It's the top article right there from Paul Joseph Watson. Video shows troops training to intern citizens in Fort Lauderdale. See, this is snatch and grab. Snatch and grab of citizens. They've got a lot of people that are being drugged into confinement, whisked off in helicopters, people being marched in single file by the military, role players, in civilian clothes, and then herded into white vans and driven off. This is the NDAA, indefinite detention by the military, rendition abroad or wherever to a torture site. Not having a trial, just being held indefinitely. This is training for what they put into the NDAA. Everyone should be concerned about this. Everyone, conservatives, liberals, everyone. Now, of course, when you look at Jade Helm, the political designations, the color designations that they have are very much red, blue states, as you've seen, Democrat states, Texas and Utah, or red states marked hostile. They essentially are not friendly to the Obama administration. You see the blue states there, of course. Those are supposedly states like California, Colorado, Nevada that are in the Democrat column there. Those are friendly states. So it follows these political designations that we've seen, even the colors that they use. We need to understand that they have these scenarios. They've had these scenarios for a very long time. We have the article at Infowars.com. Alex Jones, Paul Joseph Watson put it together with lists of embedded videos, as well as lists of links showing how this is something that has been progressing for a very long time. And now you can see it happening in Fort Lauderdale. Stepping this up each time that they do it. This is what they're training for. Very concerning. We're also going to be talking in this program about the situation of the suicide pilot. I believe, as more and more information comes out, they say that they found antidepressants in his home, but no one will say that it is SSRIs. I believe that it is. The FAA excluded SSRIs from being banned from pilot use. They cannot take any kind of antidepressant or mood-altering drugs, with the exceptions of SSRIs. What we have seen linked over and over and over again to suicide murder cases. Many, many situations besides any big shooting events. We've also seen a lot of situations where a teenager who's been put on SSRIs kills everyone in their family and has absolutely no empathy, no emotion about it. These are the symptoms of SSRI, and when you look at what they're telling us from the black box recordings, and when you look at the fact that the FAA has specifically excluded SSRIs from being banned, it's a very telling story. We're also going to be talking about the push to move the EU trade and euro currency to a sovereign state. We've been telling you all along that these trade organizations are about changing sovereignty, about world government, and now they're admitting it in a big time about the EU. Stay with us. We'll be right back. story on Infowars.com right now. Video shows troops training to intern citizens in Fort Lauderdale. We're going to show you this video. We're also going to describe it for those of you who are listening on the radio. A very disturbing video when you think about the implications. Think about what our government is training for. This is the NDAA, indefinite detention by the military, rendition of people that are hostile to the government. This is exactly what we've been concerned about with the NDAA. We can see that they are training for it in the cities now. How much do you need to see? We have produced documents showing how they have been creating training scenarios for this, creating military training facilities inside of military bases to train for this in America for a very long time. And now we see this happening in Fort Lauderdale. Now, of course, the document was not made public about the training going on in Fort Lauderdale, so people were just surprised to see that happening. And that would be the way that it would be in Texas and Utah when Jade Helm begins if the document hadn't been made public. That's what we're trying to get people to see. We're trying to get people to see what they are training for, who they perceive as their enemies according to their scenario, according to their training. And they train where they're going to fight and the way they're going to fight with people who look like their enemies. What does it tell you when they are moving about? The whole purpose of this exercise, they say, is to be able to move about in America so that Americans can't detect them. Do you see something wrong with that? You should see something wrong with that. So we're going to talk about the whole issue of what the mission of the military should be. We need to have this discussion. If we don't have this discussion pretty soon, we're not going to be able to have that discussion or any other political discussion. We've also got some other news we're going to cover. It looks like the move towards a sovereign state in the EU is picking up speed. We keep seeing this brought up time and again. And of course, we have said from the very beginning that when they create these trade blocs like NAFTA, like the European Union, the whole purpose of it is to create a sovereign entity and then to join those regional sovereign entities into a larger collective until they get to a one world government. That has always been the objective. We see now that David Petraeus mentioned just last year, he said, well, you know, what comes after North America? What comes after America? North America. And then he went on to say that he was talking about the North American Union. He says, we're 20 years into the North American Union, so we need to take a look at this. It was 10 years ago that the Council on Foreign Relations, with Ted Cruz's wife as one of the members of this committee, was talking about what they should do with the North American Union, and their solution, their key recommendation from the Council on Foreign Relations 10 years ago, was to make sure that there was one common border around the three countries, that they would have a common law enforcement that would presumably be run by the Homeland Security and the guys in Washington. This is something that has always been in the cards for everyone. Destroying the sovereignty of Mexico, of America, and of Canada, subsuming them into a North American Union, doing the same in Europe. And let's look at what's going on with this. It was back in February, and we've reported this as well when it happened. Alan Greenspan, former chair of the Federal Reserve, said that he predicted that Greece would exit from the euro. He thought that it was inevitable that that would happen. They say, he goes on to say, though, he said, the problem is that there is no way I can conceive of the euro continuing unless and until all the members of the Eurozone become politically integrated. Actually, even just fiscally integrated won't do it. So in other words, they tell us, just as they told us about the North American Union, they said, this is about trade. It's simply about trade. There's nothing but trade. We said it was to destroy the sovereignty of the three countries involved. Same thing when they came in with the EU and with the euro. They said this is simply an economic trading zone. Now they're saying that it's about political integration. It's not enough just to have fiscal integration. It's not enough just to have a trade zone. You can't really make that work unless you can have a government that subsumes the whole area. And so now they're telling us that about North America, about the North American Union. Now they're telling us that about the euro. Now, today, we have an article that came out. Eurozone can't survive in its current form, says PIMCO. Now, PIMCO is the Pacific Investment Management Company. It is one of the largest, is the largest, rather, bond fund in the world. And the manager of that bond fund said that the Eurozone is untenable in its current form and cannot survive unless countries are prepared to cede sovereignty and become a United States of Europe. A United States of Europe. So that's the next step. Okay? Now, one more quote from that, and I'll tell you where this is going the step after that. Because the reason they are showing us that the North American Union and the European Union were about sovereignty all along is because they're working on the next step. But before I leave this article, he also has this to say. He says, will we get the United States of Europe? It's not impossible, but Europe could also spend many decades in a hybrid form of political and fiscal federalism. While there might not be one government, one passport, and one army, we could be moving closer to that, but just not yet. You understand? One government, one passport, one army. Army for Europe. See, because that's the next step. You can't have a sovereign state without an army, and you can't feed that army without taxes. So at every level of sovereignty, they're going to have some kind of an army to keep the people in line and a way to get that army fed. So why are they coming out at this point about the Eurozone? Why are they coming out about the North American Union? It's because they are about to run through the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the Transatlantic Partnerships. Those are being sold to us, they're always sold to us, as simply a trade agreement. The Trans-Pacific Partnership, the Transatlantic Partnership are trade agreements that are being negotiated in secret by corporate lobbyists. And that's not an exaggeration. That's not hyperbole. It is no one but corporate lobbyists. Our elected representatives are not allowed to see it. We are not allowed to see what's going on with it. The only thing we know about it are some leaks from the WikiLeaks people. Other than that, we know nothing about it. But we do know from those leaks, we do know that it is already far beyond a trade agreement. It will affect many things within the countries immediately. But the long-term goal is not just to to take control of the internet. It's not just to force GMOs on people. It's not just to help the big pharmaceutical companies. Those things are all in there, of course. And many people are concerned about that, upset about that, and rightfully so. But the bigger picture where this is headed is a corporate governance of the world. That's the next step. That's why they're telling us what they have already done, telling us that, hey, we're now 20 years in the North American Union. America is finished. That's what Petraeus is saying. Okay? Greenspan and the manager of the world's biggest bond fund are saying the Eurozone is either going to break up or it's going to become the United States of Europe. So they're saying that at the same time they're creating this transatlantic partnership and the trans-Pacific partnership. So they're going to take these zones of North America and Europe and they're going to unify them with these quote-unquote trade agreements that are being done in secret. And of course the biggest deal is that they're fast-tracked. That means that nobody is going to see this until about 24 hours before it has to be voted on. No one will have time to actually look at the document in much detail. And of course with